give people the opportunity to join.
Right.
Let me quickly give a brief introduction about this webinar. And of course, let's welcome Jerome Labat, who is willing to join us and talk a little bit about this new company that was formed by the merger of two very well-known companies, HP Software and MICROFOCUS. We've met, I think, now a couple of times. I was quite impressed with the clarity of vision and the drive that was obviously clearly displayed by Jerome, who is I would say, Silicon Valley veteran, and also his new CEO, Chris Huey. I think with the merger of HP Software and MICROFOCUS, I think the sixth largest software company in the world has been created. I'm quite convinced it will be a formidable competitor to the likes of CA, IBM, Microsoft, and EMC, but I think with a very interesting strategic focus. And that's why I thought it was a good idea to bring you all up to speed about that vision and that focus that MICROFOCUS is going to bring to the market. You might not realize it, but HP Software together with MICROFOCUS have a pretty deep and broad product portfolio where they are supporting agile DevOps transformation, cloud and hybrid IT, open source software for the at enterprise scale, as they call it, obviously security, and then analytics and machine learning, so AI, advanced analytics. But what was most strikingly in the presentation of this MICROFOCUS strategy by Jerome is this clear focus on fundamentally protecting the ROI of existing investments. So many of our clients, as you know, are not able or willing to rip and replace everything to become this 21st century digital enterprise. So they will need a strategy that enables them to be much more agile and flexible, but at the same time protecting the huge investments and the huge value that is already in all of their legacy systems. And that's, I think, where MICROFOCUS is going to shine. So that's why I think it's quite important that we all learn what this is all about and where this company is going and what mission they are on. And who better than to talk about this to you about this mission as Jerome Labat, who is the Chief Technology Officer of this new company, and of course has been involved for a long, long time with the HP Software. So over to you, Jerome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. And so for the team, what I'd like to do in the next 45 minutes to an hour is walk you through some of the thoughts and approaches that we're putting together as we're launching this new company. So we mentioned, we are merging the HP Software asset and the MICROFOCUS company together. Both companies combined have more than 70 years of experience in the industry, building, selling, and supporting software for large enterprises. So I'm going to start with this notion of discover the new innovation. This is the content that is available publicly that we've been using to educate our customers. We just finished a world tour, and we've talked to about 3,000 customers in less than 45 days after launch of the new company. So that just gives you an idea of our focus and our willingness to go above and beyond to make sure we reach and explain our customer base what it is that we're about and what it is that we're doing going forward. At a high level, I'll start with a mission statement. This is something that the whole company is driving to every morning. An engineer wakes up and he knows that what he does for a living is to basically build this best-in-class portfolio It definitely supports enterprise-grade scalable software for big, large enterprises. So the idea there is that we're focusing on the top enterprise in the industry and the large, big, hairy problems. And analytic built in means that we are embedding analytic as a source and a capability across all of our portfolio. And I'll walk you through some more details on what that means. But the key point on that mission statement is that we say that we put customer at the center of the innovation. And what I want to do now is walk you through what that means and how we're thinking about that innovation with the customer at the center. And really what we have is we have three key thoughts that are influencing how we're driving the portfolio to satisfy that customer needs and in essence solve their day-to-day problem. First and foremost is the feedback from the customer itself, and I'll walk you through some of that. Second is a point of view that the company, MICROFOCUS, is putting against what we call the industry technology disruptor. One of the questions I get often from our customers is, what is your point of view on open source? What do you think about this cloud thing? Oh, and what about IoT and big data and machine learning? So I'll walk you through some of the thoughts and how we've been looking at the technology disruptors and our point of view against those. And then finally, in order to inform our solution, we of course have to look at our capabilities. So combining the customer feedback with our capabilities, with our point of view on the tech disruptor, we are in essence shaping the portfolio and driving our solutions going forward. So what do we mean by customer feedback and how customer is helping us drive innovation? As my colleague mentioned earlier, the first thing we do is we want to make sure that we help customer bridge from the existing, or what we'll call in some cases the old, to the new. The reality of our customers is their IT environment or infrastructure run solutions, IP projects that are generating 90% of their revenue on existing technology that in some cases could have up to 20, 30 years of existence. And so the point is, we don't want to do a rip and replace. We want to make sure we bring our customer through the journey of transformation over time, and we start with the existing assets. So we start with the IP that exists today. And I'll show you a technical example of what that means in order to maximize that ROI over time. Another point of view here is that, in essence, when we build technology, or when you look at the net new shiny pennies that's happening in the valley, the new companies, they all are creating net new solutions to address very specific problems. And some of those problems are very valid in the current environment of our customers. The challenge is they cannot afford to go again, re-implement or change the technology. Therefore, we need, as part of this MICROFOCUS mission, we need to be able to bring some of those ideas, some of those concepts back into the product that exists today, and again, start from the ground, start from what exists. And that is actually technically very challenging, because if you think about shaping and transforming an existing application or solutions and evolving them to the new world, it's a complex technical challenge. And we're leveraging innovations like Container to allow us to do some of that work. So we protect, we invest in the existing, we protect the existing, we work with the customer through their evolution. And the last bit that we've heard a lot is, help me consume the software in a way that I want. So it could be CapEx 1 year, it could be OpEx another year. We actually found customers, extreme large scale customers, that rather buy the software through license versus consumption, but then they disperse it internally through a consumption model. So we had to find a solution and a capability from a technology perspective that actually allow me to deliver on that. So let me walk you through technical example on how we deliver on that point of view. The first one is COBOL. MICROFOCUS is a 40-year-old company. The first product they released was a COBOL product. Today, what we can do with the technology and with Visual COBOL, we actually evolved this technology to a point where today I can take a workload off a mainframe environment, release some of the MIPS, and start working in a distributed, highly distributed environment, Linux-based environment, or AKA the cloud. and I can literally do my dev test and integration testing on the cloud environment, and then bring my workload back into the mainframe on the MIPS where I want it to run. That's one use case. The other use case is literally porting the mainframe workload off the mainframe directly natively into a cloud or Linux-based environment. So this is an example where we've invested in the technology, aka COBOL, over the years to make sure that it addresses the needs of tomorrow. And this is, we have a couple customers up and running on this approach. The second point of view here is that, you know, we see this evolution in the valley. So for example, on security, there's a lot of activity around security, logging, and user behavior. And what was very interesting is when we brought the portfolio together between MicroFocus and HP Software, what you had is you have the ArcSight asset from HP Software and the NetIQ asset from MicroFocus. And what we can do here is by bringing those together, those two assets, we actually can create a use case where we can look at the environment, use a correlation engine from ArcSight for security rules, and look at the user behavior and activities in the user account management MDM system, which is NetIQ, and start to implement rules very quickly in the environment to protect your environment based on user behavior, and in this case, access controls. So we took concepts that we see in the valley that are emerging and applying it using our technology. It might not be 100%, you know, user behavior approach, but it is a first step, and it's starting with existing investment that the customer has put in place. That integration I just described is already something that is in the work and will be released very soon. So again, we started the company not a month, more than about a month and a half ago now, and we already have some solutions and products that are going to market. The final bits here is, you know, how do we deliver software? And this is, you know, again, enterprise-grade software. And how do we deliver without losing those 30, 40 years of IP that we put in those products? And so what we've been doing for the past few years now is really transforming our internal engineering pipelines using containers, but also now delivering the products on a container platform. So we've created a foundational platform that's used containerization as a solution. It's on Kubernetes. It's using Docker on the top. And what it's allowing us to do is to build once and deploy everywhere, literally. And so we have solutions that are going to be shipping, that are shipping today on this container framework, and that are shipping and are going to be implemented in native cloud or on-premise or, you know, at partners. And it's a very powerful approach. And this is how we can deliver on the promise of consumption models, where I could sell a license delivered to a containerization environment that sits on-premise, or I could sell exactly the same piece of software and asset delivered on the same infrastructure, but now running on a cloud, but being, you know, consumed and paid for by the drink. So those are very specific examples on how we're driving, you know, our innovation internally and driving our technologies to address those point of view to protect the customer investment. The next bit of the discussion is really about the MicroFocus point of view on some of those key disruptors. And I'm going to walk you through those because what's interesting with that is that it's really helping us shape how we're thinking about the roadmaps going forward. And it helps us solve some of the tensions that we see between, you know, the customer's demand. So first and foremost, Agile DevOps, you should not be surprised by that. We absolutely embrace DevOps. It's part of the processes of, you know, how we do things going forward. But the twist that we put in here is that we are looking at it again from an existing investment going forward. And so DevOps, we ask ourselves, what does this mean to, you know, implement the DevOps process to increase agility on existing environment? What does this mean to do DevOps on mainframe? And so you'll see some solution in our visual COBOL environment again that allows engineers not only to move to a distributed system like the Linux system or cloud system, but actually implement modern DevOps processes on top of that technology stack. DevOps is about compressing, you know, your cycle times between the different phases of engineering or the engineering pipelines. And so you can actually start to implement DevOps mechanics or practices on top of traditional stacks. And so our focus is really around technology, around automation and orchestration technologies to help compressing those cycle times. So we know DevOps is here. It's definitely a methodology that grows, and depending on the technology stack you use to build your application, The implementation of that agility is going to be different technically, yet you can achieve those compressions, and therefore you can deliver products faster, and you can embrace that, that acceleration if you want. And by the way, DevOps is not just an application solution. It is also very applicable to IT operations. And our tagline for our ITOM product line, which is our IT Operation Management product line, is to help IT move at the speed of DevOps. So a very strong point of view here of what DevOps means in the context of our existing customers. Cloud and hyperscalers, again, they're here to stay. And what technology components they brought to us is really two things. One is the notion of the API. So everybody's familiar with APIs, of course, but having APIs and structuring your applications and your services through those APIs is a different thing. And so we've been on the tear to really compartmentalize our solutions and our products, and through containerization, being able to start extracting services, if you want, from those applications. So traditional tightly coupled architectures are going away, and we're getting into this, I'm going to say, decoupled or loosely coupled architectures, and we're putting that in play across all of our products. And again, not rewriting the products, but starting to expose APIs based on existing products. Those APIs are actually services. And so we are able to combine together products to deliver services and really take this new approach that you see in the hyperscalers. So the point here is that we understand that this is a new distributed environment. We have to evolve our products to there, and we're in the process of doing that, again, leveraging containerization. I would say the other piece, excuse me, in that context is that everything is available through APIs and everything is available on the fly. So therefore, that has an implication on how you manage your engineering environments and your solutions. And in the context of the hyperscalers, we want to be able to help the customer choose the right fit infrastructure for their needs. So you'll see us be really talking about hybrid IT management, where we're bridging multiple cloud infrastructures so that customers can holistically choose the right fit infrastructure for their projects, pipelines, and services. So a key focus here is heterogeneity is moving away from basically the walls of a data center into this cloud world where you have all those type of services or providers that you need to be able to manage. From an open source perspective, we understand that it is there. It's an ecosystem that's solid and vibrant. It is at enterprise scale. And so what we do here is we're really looking at open source from three different vectors. The first one is we want to leverage open source to help us accelerate our own innovation. So we're using chatbots. We're deploying bots using UBot. We're using chat and interfaces to accelerate the use of our products. And we're using Matamore as a front end, equivalent to Slack, and then UBot as a bot. So those are examples where open source projects are coming in and helping us accelerate the delivery of this chat experience for our product. In another example, we're using Kafka, for example, for our ingestion layer for all of the data and the big data analytics problems. So we are definitely supporting open source, embracing it for accelerating our innovation. And when we do pick up one of those products, what we'll do is we will contribute back to the community, because what we want to do, for example, we want to make sure they are enterprise grade. So on UBot, we've been working on some enterprise security features, and we're contributing those back to the product. Another aspect of the open source is we actually create the projects ourselves. So a few years ago, we rewrote our operation orchestration engine, which is our workflow automation engine. And we took a piece of that workflow automation engine and created a project called Cloud Slang. And the idea there is that an engineer can pick up Cloud Slang, write up, an orchestration flow using XML, and character formats, and then take that workflow and literally be able to run it into the operation orchestration production environment. So seamless integration between an engineer new world experience with the traditional operation orchestration tool that's running in production. So that's another view on how we're looking at open source. And then the last point on open source is that we want to create value for our customer. We understand that those set of technology exist in the engineering pipelines, they exist in the operation environment, and our point is not to replace them, but actually to understand that they exist and to create more value. And I'll show you in the solutions that we're building and the integration point that we're building, how we are adding value. So a quick example in operations is we make sure that, Puppet, Chef, Ansible is actually connected to our data center automation solutions, so that customers that so choose to have some of those open source, capabilities in their environment for provisioning or for environment automation actually can be plugged into their enterprise class system that also can now manage, more traditional mainframe or Solaris-like environment, etc. So that bridge is created between this open source world and this traditional enterprise world. A very strong point of view, and we've delivered solution already on that. What we mean by secure data-centric enterprise, so this is an interesting, evolution. As we talk with our customers, everybody's been talking about analytics and big data and Hadoop and everything else, and that's all great. But what we realize is that our customers actually have a siloed set of data lakes, and they are not able to extract information rapidly and efficiently, and they're not able to link those data lakes together to actually create real value. So our point of view on this is that, one, data is a fundamental oil to the new industry. Long gone are the days where first-time mover advantage was calculated in year. Today, first-time mover advantage is calculated in hours, and therefore data is there to help you make those decisions. And you need to bridge those different silos. So you have traditional BI data for financial information, you have operations data for SLAs, you have security data lakes. But what you don't have is you don't have an aggregation. And what we see coming is this need to bring those different silos together to start answering questions or being able to figure out answers on unknowns, which is kind of this whole new evolution of machine learning and analytics. So we are aware of that, and I'll show you strategically how we're approaching that problem and how we're building solutions in our portfolio so that we can do what I call a crawl, walk, run approach, solving existing problems that we know very quickly, more efficiently, etc. The last bit is really more of a true technical point of view, and this is really based on our technology. So we have the luxury in MICROFOCUS to have the IDLE platform for basically unstructured data analytics. So anything, in terms of image management, indexing, image overlay, and analysis, will be done through our text at scale, and linguistic analytics at scale is an ideal use case. And then we have Vertica, which Vertica is a distributed columnar database, a very powerful engine that is today at the heart of all those new economy companies. So when you think about Uber, Apple, Airbnb, BlaBlaCar, all those, the one component that all those companies have is similar in terms of technology is they're using Vertica at the heart of their analytics and the heart of their business model. It's actually quite fascinating to see that evolution. And to this day, we see now customers coming back to us saying, I have this great Hadoop cluster, I have all this information, but I'm absolutely unable to extract value from that data. And I like the fact that Vertica can just sit on top of Hadoop and start to run some basic SQL at scale and really give me some answers. And now we're seeing that consistently. So those are point of views, if you want, in terms of how we're looking at those disruptions that are happening in the industry and how we're responding to them in the context of our products and solutions. And at the bottom, again, this is really not a technology per se, but it's a point of view that says everything I do, technology, process, engineering-wise, has to be linked to the existing, to the core, so that at the end of the day, I deliver on the promise I made to my customer, which is I will protect your existing investment, I will help you bridge to the new, I will evolve your solutions and offering and transform your business processes to these new needs of, agile and rapid development, rapid deployment, etc. So that's kind of like how we're looking at the technology and the influencer. So now what does this mean from a product portfolio perspective, and how do we bring together all of the assets that exist in the portfolio? And I realize that I'm actually missing a slide here, which is a description of all the assets that we have in the portfolio. So I'm going to quickly walk you through and then bring them back together to the solution. So today, when you look at the MICROFOCUS portfolio, we have one of the largest application deployment management solutions. So that's from application lifecycle management to testing, to deployment, continuous integration, continuous deployment. And that's our IDM portfolio. So it's a $1.2 billion business. And in there, we're bringing, the Silk assets, for example, the Serena assets. We're bringing the Mercury assets. So that's kind of the application world. We have an IT automation set of assets. So this is the Opsware assets, so operation orchestration, data center automation, which was the server automation product line. All the monitoring assets, the archiving backup assets are all coming under this IT management operations family, if you want. This is HP software heritage. Coming from MICROFOCUS, what we're doing here is we're bringing all the mainframe tooling to manage basically the workloads on top of mainframes. So that's bring you this idea and capability where I can manage in the IT environment applications and workloads deployed on mainframe all the way to application and workloads deployed into a cloud/mobile like environment. So truly sustaining from mainframe all the way to mobile. We have a specific set of assets around what I'm going to say focus on cloud and hybrid and the ability to manage multiple clouds, the hybrid cloud management platform. And what we're doing there, that's a HP software heritage asset. What we're doing is we're adding to it the MICROFOCUS heritage asset that is called PlateSpin. And PlateSpin allows me to do workload management and migration from virtual to cloud, from cloud to cloud, from virtual to virtual, from physical to virtual, and we're now looking at virtual to containers and stuff like that. So that gives me, that's the focus area for the portfolio there. On the security side of the house, we have basically our traditional ArcSight product line, which is a SIEM. We have technology to protect your applications as you are writing them. So this is the Fortify assets. And you have technology to encrypt data in flight in a format preserving manner, which is basically our voltage assets. We are adding to this portfolio the NetIQ assets from MICROFOCUS heritage, and that is basically the MDM or the management, the user management capabilities. Very powerful combination now because that gives me access control in a way that I didn't have before in terms of capability. I'm also bringing together a set of further capability in terms of archiving, backup, recovery, and I say data management. And this is bringing the Guava product line from MICROFOCUS heritage with the e-discovery and I can't remember the name now, data backup recovery management, from HP software heritage. So another product line here that is really focusing on data management post-creation in the enterprise. And then I mentioned earlier, we have the big data platforms of IDOL and Vertica. And then finally, something I'm very, very excited about is the fact that now MICROFOCUS is bringing the SUSE stack. And I have now available to the product line, if you want, or the portfolio, a stack that goes from the Linux kernel all the way up to a PaaS platform and a CAS platform. So that's going to be very interesting when we start to expand manageability of our, of our environments, because we're deploying solutions on containers, but also from a customer perspective, it means I can now bring in solutions that are really working from, the Linux kernel all the way up. And in essence, I have a Red Hat equivalent, and I have the only stack that is able to compete in the enterprise with Red Hat. And so you can see that the breadth of the portfolio of this MicroFocus company is really tailored and assembled so that we can support, those large enterprises. So having said that, and I have all those assets, how do they really come together to satisfy or support customers' needs and the customer question that we've seen? And so over the last year, prior to the announcement of the merging, we've been going around talking to our large customers. And what you see on the screen is, in essence, the outcome of those discussions with those customers. And the three key questions were, how can you help me move faster and be more agile? And this is going to be the DevOps bucket. The second one is, how can you help me make sense of the mess in the middle? I have this IT environment that is consuming resources from the cloud, from on-premise, from a third party. My business is telling me I have to spend less and do more. I have this IoT world that's coming up. What do I need to do? Help me manage the messy middle. And this is what we mean by hybrid IT management. It's really helping customer accelerate and operate more efficiently in the existing world, and yet free up, capital if you want to invest in innovation. So IT can now manage the existing more efficiently, move faster, be more agile, and then start to invest in innovation. The third point was, we have this security quote issue, and traditional thinking has been protect my enterprise. But every customer we talk to understand that protecting the enterprise is not sufficient. The reality is the bad guys are already in the enterprise, and if they are in the enterprise, they are looking at your data and your information. So customers have been asking us to think a little bit differently and actually help make sense about, the security market, where we have all those different tools, amazing innovation, but really no consistent approach to what security could mean in this large enterprise. So you'll see what and how we're thinking about this here. And then finally, predictive analytics. To be clear here, we're putting these use cases. This is more of a MicroFocus point of view on how we're looking at predictive analytics. The first three goal or focus areas are really the definition and the articulation of our solutions to really deliver on the customer problems. So I'm going to walk you through quickly what those four focus areas are, and you'll see how the different products in the portfolio are coming together. Now, the disclaimer here is that I have not listed all the products in the portfolio on those slides. What I did is I am presenting at a high level how the solutions are coming together, how the products are coming together to deliver out-of-the-box solutions around DevOps, hybrid IT management, security, and data management. So let's start with DevOps. So we understand that it is an iterative process, regardless of the technology stack you use. So this is important. It's a piece of COBOL, a 3-tier Java application, a modern, PaaS environment, or the next generation applications that you start building using some of the functions, in serverless architected functions that exist today in the cloud. What we're saying is you still need to build, test, and deploy code, and oh, by the way, you need to do that in a secure fashion. So our point of view is that pipeline in that operational way, or that engineering factory, if you want, has patterns that are consistent regardless of the technology stack you use. The difference between the different technology stacks is the speed at which you go through the phases. And our point of view is that through automation and orchestration, we can actually speed up, and implement agility and DevOps processes on existing stack. So how does that translate into products? Well, Fortify is our technology to do code inspections, and this is what we use today. We use Fortify internally across all of the portfolio. We scan every build that goes through the system is being scanned, and it's just completely embedded into our continuous integration, continuous delivery. You see COBOL and Serena assets. Again, I mentioned earlier, we are implementing DevOps processes on top of those assets, and you can see all the portfolio here in terms of testing, and deployment automation, etc. What's interesting is when you bring the power of the MICROFOCUS portfolio together, you can actually now support this whole engineering environment with capabilities where you can dynamically and automatically select the right fit infrastructure. So for example, I mentioned, you have a mainframe environment where you're doing dev test and then integration testing, and you want to move that mainframe environment off, that application off the mainframe environment and move it into a cloud environment to doing dev test and integration testing. Oh, and by the way, you want to connect that to a mobile front end that's sitting somewhere on an AWS or Azure environment. Well, in order to be able to do that at scale across the enterprise and across all the different boundaries of IT services, you need to introduce technologies and solutions that helps you, in essence, to provision, deploy, and operate the right fit infrastructure and connect that right fit infrastructure to the service that you're creating, in this case, the mainframe development environment or the Java tier development environment or the mobile infrastructure development environment. And so what we've done here is we're bringing together as part of the offering for this DevOps solution the power of our portfolio, and in this case, we're bringing what we call a hybrid cloud management platform that allows us to in essence, allows us to then deliver on that vision. Now, remember earlier I mentioned that you do have open source embedded in the environment, and this is nothing, when you talk about engineering and engineers, they love to bring their own tools. And so what you're seeing here is a set of open source, some of the traditional open source tools that you'll expect to see in this environment. But our point is, we understand that those tools are embedded as part of the pipeline, and our vision is to create more value. And the way we're going to create more value is by creating and having delivered today a technology that gives me visibility across all those different pipelines, across all those different tool chains in a consistent manner. So what ALM Octane is about is the ability for a large-scale enterprise to operationalize the engineering factory in a consistent fashion. So I look at all my projects, all my engineering pipelines, through a set of burn down charts, regardless of the technology that I have embedded. It could be Java, it could be .NET, it could be mainframe, or it could be mobile. So this is a very powerful statement, because what it says is I am not able to manage at scale a portfolio of assets, continuously improving on my existing assets, transforming applications from the existing, evolving existing application, but also binding in or connecting to, net new applications that could be deployed natively into a cloud environment or native mobile application, or think about IoT functions and capabilities. So when we really look at DevOps and we look at the power of the portfolio, this is how we believe we can add value and bring value to our customer. And that last layer is actually very important, because we are I think we are uniquely positioned to do this today. I haven't yet to see a competitor that has been able to do this. If you're familiar with our friends from Jira, today Jira equals one project. If I have 500 projects, how do I manage those 500 Jiras and basically coordinate across? It's quite impossible. So this is something we've experienced. We are actually using internally what I'm describing to you right now. So this is how we're addressing DevOps, and this is how we believe we can help customers increase their agility, their cycle times for building new offerings across this diverse ecosystem of technology stacks, if you want. I'm going to move to hybrid IT management. In this case, it starts again with the application. So understand that there's a bridge from a product perspective and a portfolio perspective. What we've done is we actually have technology that bridges this DevOps environment and this hybrid IT management, and I'll show you how that works. So it starts with the applications, and they land into this IT operation world. And what I like to say here is that today, the fundamental job of IT has not changed. IT still need to do change management, patching, still has to have a service management, a knowledge base, still need to ensure security, the right SLA. But the job of IT is way more complicated because you are now sourcing, capabilities, resources, services across a very diverse environment. And this right fit infrastructure, or those right fit providers that I mentioned earlier, you still need to be able to manage and expose that to your business partner. You still need to be able to demonstrate that across all those clouds, you've achieved the right service level. You still have to ensure that your data is protected and sitting in the right location. Think about GDPR in the context of this multi-cloud environment. It's a very complex problem. So the point here is that we have assets, we have technology and know-how that we've built over the last 40 years that know how to do this very, very well. And what we're doing is we're evolving those technologies and those capabilities to embrace, this new world of the cloud and those new capabilities, that are in essence, I'm going to say extreme scale in terms of deployment of services. So similar to, the application world, you also have a whole set of capability and open source solutions. And additionally, we're bringing in some capability around this mainframe management, NetIQ management. So you can imagine identity management being cohesive across the complete tool chain to manage operations in this hybrid environment. So it's kind of a powerful statement. You'll notice that the bottom layer, the right fit infrastructure, is actually the same as what I had in the DevOps use case. And the reason for that is the building block that bridges hybrid IT management and DevOps from a technology perspective is our hybrid cloud management platform. So we have consistency between the two use cases when it comes to the fundamental building blocks of the technology. And then finally, one of the key asks we had from our customers on this one was, help me show my business partner what it is that I do. Help me show them how I can translate, my good work on the IT side of the world into business benefits. So what we've been doing here is really leveraging our heritage, in monitoring and in workload management and SLA management, if you want. We've taken a lot of those capabilities, our UCMDBs, etc., and we use that as a source of information to help you decode the technology function of IT and then represent them in a set of KPIs that can be consumed by the business. So in a similar fashion to the application world where we have this Octane, single pane of glass tooling that allows you to understand your engineering activities, across all those tool lines, we have this capability through Operation Bridge to show you and display the business of IT and how the business of IT is helping, through a set of KPIs, the general business. So you can see here a very comprehensive view that goes from traditional IT operation management to hybrid IT management, all the way to connecting back to the application world and to the business world. I'm going to switch over to security and data management. And this is one where I think we're putting a point of view on the table that's still being shaped, and a lot of feedback from the team here specifically. We believe that's the right direction. We have a couple use cases in play. We are leveraging GDPR as an example, but let me walk you through what we mean by security and data management. The point of view here is that, you still definitely need to secure your environment. You have data you want to protect, and the way you're going to do that is by securing the environment, the walls and the perimeter of the enterprise. But we think that that is not sufficient. You also need to secure your application, be it your application or a third-party application. So if you were to run a third-party application, you want to make sure that if it connects into your environment, you've applied the right, you've parsed the code if possible, or at least you protect the runtime of that application if possible. The second thing you want to do is make sure that your data is always encrypted, being at rest or in flight. And so you want to make sure that that data that is in the enterprise is not, if accessed is not consumable or extractable in a usable fashion. And then, of course, you want to make sure you control access to that information. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is once you have that data and once it sits in your walls and in your data center, you want to make sure you can actually manage, in essence, apply policies on that data so that you know where it's going to be placed, you know who can access it and read it, you know who can delete it, you can know who can work with it, archive it, and destroy it in essence. And so when you look at the portfolio and you bring the portfolio together, you can see that we have the right assets to allow us to deliver on this, I'm going to call it data lifecycle management. So the way we're looking at security, it's really a combination of traditional security thoughts and adding this notion of a data lifecycle management from the creation of the data inception, so the data coming through an app, all the way to retirement and / destruction of the data. So this is, again, an area where we are learning. We're applying use cases. We have customers in production with the left side of the picture. We have customers in production with the right side of the picture. I have a couple that are in the process of implementing both sides, if you want. But this is a point of view that we're building and solutions that we're putting together where I really would appreciate feedback and learnings from you guys in terms of that use case. I'm going to finish with number 4, which is predictive analytics. And again, this one is more of a technology point of view that we at MICROFOCUS believe in and how we are deploying our capabilities, knowing that we have technology like Vertica and IDLE. So where we are today is we are embedding Vertica as a technology, core technology across all of the domain use cases. So I mentioned Octane in the DevOps use case. Octane is actually behind the scene a graph, and what it's doing is it's dynamically constructing the definition of an application, a workload, and I can go in more details, but it's pretty cool technology. The point is it's a new approach to map and understand how you build software and how you deploy software. That's why we are agnostic to the technology stack that you're using or the process that you're using to build that software, so you have a common way to state the progress of your projects. But the point here is that we are building, integrating Vertica in that solutions too, because what we want to do is we want to start to work on what we call predictive Octane, which is we want to start to predict potentially the quality of a release. And I know some of the teams in CapNuts and I think Sogeti also have been working on some of the early draft of these capabilities. So that's in this case, we're ingesting data in a traditional, we have a Kafka ingestion layer and a synchronizer behind the scene to do some of that work. But what you see here is basically for every domains, we have an ingestion engine, and the ingestion engine is a little bit different. On security, if you think about excuse me, what we announced on security, which is ArcSight Investigate and the evolution of ArcSight, we actually are using an evolution of our connectors that were associated to ArcSight, and we're building this new ingestion layer called ADP, and that is based on Kafka. And again, it's helping us change the game on how we are scaling and simplifying the management of all the connectors that exist in the context of the ArcSight environment, and starting to enable us the routing of data into a hunting data lake versus the correlation engine that is ArcSight. So, and using Vertica to do the hunting and the quick discovery and understanding of the use case in ArcSight Investigate. Then finally, on the operations side, again, we have a technology called Operations Analytic. We actually are embedding Vertica in some of the MICROFOCUS assets that are coming in. So in PlateSpin, we're looking at what does it mean to implement Vertica in PlateSpin, for example. So those are open discussions. Those are not product roadmaps. But just to give you an idea of how deep and how fast we're moving to make sure that we can embed this highly scalable analytic engine so that we can respond to existing problems, known problems. So I can now do ops analytic with feeds from logs from my traditional systems, monitoring system, BSM, etc., my traditional probes, I can actually breach some of the data from security, and I can start to address operation use cases very quickly. Think about compliance use cases with patching, for example. How do I make sure that I can scale out my patching and my compliance policies across this multi-cloud environment? So that's something we can do because we're applying those technologies into the portfolio. But that's where we are today. What we're working on is normalizing and simplifying the ingestion layer. So one thing we've learned with the customers about data is that everybody has their Hadoop, regardless of the distribution. Everybody has data lakes, but it's all over the map. And so your data is only as good and your analytics is only as good as the data that you put in. And so what we're doing is really focusing across the portfolio on a single ingestion layer. We're using Kafka to do that, and that's going to give us a bridge, if you want, and the early view on what I would call a simplified universal data lake or an enterprise data lake. And we're working on that. So that's work in progress. This is an opportunity again for the team to come in and provide feedback, and that's that would be interesting. The top layer, the use cases that exist in those different domains are not changing. They're evolving, but they're going to leverage that source of information and therefore going to be able to do a bit more work around that. Where we're going, and this is longer term, and this is actually also combined with some of the thought process around IoT. So one thing is to get the data and ingest it. Another thing we're seeing and starting to see is the edge and the compute and the analytics happening at the edge. So there's going to be a combination of capabilities where I want to bring, for example, Vertica and algorithm in Vertica to the edge, run it, and then bring the data back into my, to the ingestion layer, into all the domain systems. But we don't really know where it's going to land. So the way we've codified today for our strategy going forward is we have this concept of this enterprise database for analytics, which is going to be this Vertica store. We have these ingestion layers that's going to allow me to pull from other sources additionally and actually connect back into the domain expert. And then the notion of intelligent apps. And so the intelligent app is where you're starting to roll in the context of predictive, or it's machine learning, and start to have cross-domain use cases. We see that a lot between security and operations. Not as much between operations and application delivery, but I suspect that if you really formalize the agile frameworks and scale agile, it'll be very interesting to see what you can do between the operations data and sets and the application delivery data sets. So we'll see where that goes. But this is more of a future vision, if you want, of how we see analytics going forward. So I went really, really fast. This is kind of where we are, how we're looking at the portfolio at a very high level. So hopefully have a few minutes left for Q&A. I've seen a lot of questions popping up, so I'll return it to the team here.
Okay, Jerome, thank you very much. Again, very, very interesting and quite a impressive strategy. I saw one very specific question that you might be able to answer, and I have some more general questions. So while you were talking, one question popped up. Maybe you can see it in the chat function. And the question from Deepak about moving COBOL apps into the cloud. And maybe you can clarify a little bit about the COBOL data file.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested, I can connect you with the actual experts there on how they are structuring it and how they're making it work. But based on the briefing I got from the guys early on, is I literally moved the whole structure, so including the data. So it's partial, and the details I'll have to work with the experts to walk through how it's done.
Okay.
So we have it. We do have it in production, and we have a couple of financial institutions that are leveraging this.
Very interesting. Then the next question is also from Deepak about test data management. And the question is basically, that you cannot use production data for security purposes. So is there a solution similar to IBM Optim?
So the data management is actually a couple things. I can opus data, I can mask it, and this is a thing we can do with our voltage technology because it's a format preserving capability. What it will do is it'll take your data sets. You can obfuscate PII data, for example. And so you'll look at your production data. It'll behave the same. The applications won't change, but the data is unusable or unreadable, so it's protected. So that's one way to be able to pull and source data from production using, if you were to encrypt it, at time of creation of the data. And then we have other technology that data manager that allows us to to clean up, if you want, content. So that's a step that you would have to run, and then you will have to associate that to your test and your test run. So you have an orchestration capability that brings you the two together.
Okay. I hear there's somebody on it with a lot of background noise, so maybe it's the speaker. If you can go to mute it would be helpful. So another question, quite detailed question about if you support, or how do you support data masking and hashing in the context of data management?
Yeah, again, this is I'll have to bring you the voltage guys in there, but that's what they do. And
okay.
The hashing is actually part of their secret sauce in terms of how they do the format preserving. That's their IP, so it's a NIST standard, and that's the IP they created. And so if you want to go deep on that, I can bring you the expert that have actually invented that.
Yeah, okay. Well, the alliance managers from I think both from Sogeti as MICROFOCUS are on this call. So Bob Leroy from the Sogeti side is the right person to approach when you have specific questions and you would like to have a more deeper understanding of any of the topics that were just discussed today.
And I'll be happy to facilitate linkage with the team.
Okay, great. So another question, a little bit more on the competitive side. So what is your message to motivate existing ALM customers to migrate to Optane?
Sure. So it's an upgrade, an evolution, and so you can continue leveraging ALM as you use it today. As you expand your portfolio, remember the customer we talked to, the large enterprise, if you expand your portfolio and start building, net new applications or transforming your applications to those new operating systems or new methodologies. Once you move to Optane, you have a continuum on how you continue to manage the existing versus the new. And so that's just the value proposition is visibility, simplification, ease of use. It's a SaaS offering. If you want it to consume as a SaaS, it can be on-premise. It's a container-based system that's being deployed, so you can also very quickly receive, changes and evolution. So it's in essence, there's a set of components to the value proposition besides just, changing from ALM to Optane.
So in general, Jerome, is that what it means to operationalize your statement about protecting the existing ROI, that you offer quite smooth transitions from the old to the new without rip and replace or huge disinvestments or things like that? Is that behind the strategy?
Yeah, that's the core principle.
Okay.
So I'll walk you through an example right now. We have a product called ITSM that is going to be released very soon. And ITSM is actually a merger of our Service Anywhere SaaS offering for Service Manager and our Service Management platform. And if you're familiar with our Service Management platform, people will tell you, well, it's antiquated, it's not easy to use. Yet the IP and the capability of the platform in terms of, processes is best of class. What we've done is we've discontinued the pure native SaaS offering of Service Anywhere. We announced that about a year ago. And we picked up that technology and we're bringing it back up and aligning it and introducing it to our Service Manager assets. And the reason we can do that is because the Service Anywhere assets are actually services deployed in containers that are now sitting next to the Service Management asset. And for the team that are interested, I can walk you through how we do. Over time, it's going to be an upgrade over time of the data structures, data models. It's an evolution of how service management is treating asset in one cases and using asset in the future. And we can transparently do all this behind the scene, relieving the customer from the responsibility and accountability of doing all the integration and doing all the transitions. And so you get the new experience of Service Anywhere, the modern UI mobile experience, but yet you have your 10 years or 15 years of service management knowledge base that still is fully active and fully usable.
Does it mean that your commitment to open source? Does it mean that you actually publish your APIs and services so that people can write to those APIs?
Yeah, we will. So the teams is team by team. They decide what is open and published. So for example, we're using the IT for IT framework for the IT business transformation. And so through that framework, there are a set of APIs that are driven by the consortium, and we are publishing those APIs. So that's an example, for loosely coupled integration. For Octane and other tools, the product team will expose the APIs. Today, everything through our hybrid cloud management platform is exposed through APIs. PlaceSpin is exposed through APIs.
Okay. So I'm mindful of the time, so we're almost running out of time. I have one more question, Jerome, which is very helpful for us to understand the positioning of the new MICROFOCUS. And of course, I know that you don't like to talk about competition, but can you tell a little bit about how you differentiate from companies that we know well, like IBM, Microsoft, and CA?
Sure. I mean, they're all a little bit different. So if you think about, IBM will have a lot of firepower and people to assemble solutions. What we're driving to is actually build solutions that out of the box are behaving. So what I described to you in DevOps, for example, is available through a model office. That's a reference architecture and a blueprint that is available and installable, and you can work with our professional services team to access it. And so you get out of the box capability that gives you, some of the solution to start moving into Agile. So that's for the IBM piece. On Microsoft, it's actually a quote, I'm going to say a co-opetition because we are consuming Azure and we are helping manage Azure. We have capabilities in a hybrid environment where we absolutely understand, the Microsoft ecosystem, but we see also our customers challenge where, the customer will have all of the above. So we help them manage, the messy middle. A little bit similar to the CA world, if you think about what CA is doing, CA has been focusing a bit more on the DevOps and continuous integration, continuous delivery, on some of the mainframe activities. But I have yet to see them bringing together things like, what we've done with OpsBridge, for example, where we give you those single pane of glass, or bridging the ADM and the operation world in the way we're bridging it. Because, if you step back and look at our approach, I cannot have an automation and orchestration system of the cloud or a hybrid cloud infrastructure that does not understand both IT and apps. And so the way we shape the solution is going to be different, and it's actually going from the core. So it's a bit less acquisition, but it brings me in closer to where the customer is, and actually I'm moving at the same speed as the customer, which is very interesting because now they're seeing and evolving their own internal processes. So, we absolutely are aware of the competition and working. We're choosing strategically where we want to go and how we align to our point of view on what we want to do, which is, bridge the old to the new.
Yeah. Okay. That's clear. So we have had something like 12 of our technology leaders from many different countries. So what would be the message to them to leverage on the opportunities that partnering with Microsoft would bring to Society? What would be your parting thought?
My parting thought is be curious. Give us a chance to look at the technology we have. We have some cool, innovative approaches that it might not be your traditional approach, or it will not be your native reaction to say, well, I want to do analytics. Why are you doing it this way? Or are you doing, hybrid IT management this way? Why are you not doing, this other cloud way? be curious, come and ask questions. I'm happy to connect you to the deep technologies that can help answer. And hopefully you'll see that, you know, it's a new way of, it's a new approach, even our delivery model on containerization. So just be curious.
Yeah, no, so for sure you have, how do you call it, started our curiosity. I'm aware that we did have a, how do you call it, a session already with the testing community together with MICROFOCUS. I think it would be a good idea to continue and have a similar session with the DevOps community and the ALM community, but that's something that we work together with Bob Leroy, that we start planning for that. So for now, thank you very much for your time, Jerome, and your inspiring talk. And I'm sure that this is the beginning of an interesting and worthwhile partnership. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks all for your participants, and Jerome and Mikkel for taking us through this interesting session. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.